Please roll the video.
Football is a Texas tradition, and here at ISD, we have our own special part of it. Our district teams face off on the field, bringing with them crowds of fans and supporters from all 5 campuses and the community. What would a football game be without school spirit? The band, the cheerleaders, the drill team, the flag corps, and of course, no one has more school spirit than the school mascot.
You don't have the band, you don't have like the audience all showed up.
The band, like how excited and pumped everybody gets. Because once we get pumped, it moves down and down and down. So then like the sing section is excited.
I just feel like keeping the team motivated and happy, then we can really just generate it to the crowd, and when they feel our energy, then they get energy. Well, to me, it's just really like emphasizing everything like Summer Creek stands for, like as like a family, and like really bringing it like throughout the school, throughout the district at the games.
Love the feeling and the rush that I get from it to know that I can come to a place and just feel good to be me and a bulldog is amazing.
And have a fun time together, and you guys in school. It's exciting for amongst all the school.
We wave the flag as soon as something, either a good tackle or interception or something good happens in the game, and basically it just symbolize like pride.
Just being a part of the crowd, making sure I'm interacting with them, getting them hyped up, because it helps us in the games.
I just love the spirit that our school brings.
Each of these and other groups bring their own unique talent and skill to the field in the name of school spirit. They boost morale, they pump up the crowd, they support our teams. And what would a halftime show be without drums, pom-poms, and dance? We love our student athletes, and we love a good game. Let's celebrate all the folks on the sidelines who turn our football games into a lively event, a celebration of school spirit, and the beloved tradition that is Friday night football.
Jamie, thank you. Great job again. Literally, again, thousands of our high school students get involved in all of those activities, and we're real excited to be able to offer them to our students. So, Mr. President, we will now begin to show the stellar standouts for the month, and if you would please speak to what that is.
Thank you, Dr. Sconzo. And once again, this month, you'll see on the screen the various achievements that have been submitted by principals for our stellar standouts that occurred during the month of October. It was, as you can see, a pretty busy month with students achieving in the area of athletics, fine arts, service learning. Many of the UIL music contests have begun. The final results are not in, but I'm sure we're going to see next month a lot of wins and great showings there. And if you want to look at, we started last month, but we'll continue to archive these on the website. So parents, grandparents, anyone interested can go and take a look. So thank you again. And Ms. Mount, thank you for getting this all put together. Okay.
Thank you, Scarfo. And Mr. President, trustees, we do have two commendations this evening. Tonight, we're going to recognize our super staffers for the month, and we'll also recognize what I dare say is the best corporate partner any school district can have in the state of Texas. So I'm going to ask Jerry Mondaron to please come forward and introduce the commendations. And Mr. President, if you will join me out front. I will.
We're going to begin with super staffers tonight. Just as a reminder, each month campuses and departments select an individual to be honored as a super staffer for their outstanding work in advancing student achievement. A drawing is held and 3 honorees receive additional recognition at a school board meeting, including a $200 gift card to Papa's Restaurants, thanks to an award sponsor. The sponsor this evening is the Humble ISD Education Foundation, and that is in gratitude to wrapping up the Employee Appeal campaign and everyone's support of making that another successful year. So let's start with our elementary super staffer. Tonight is Kathy Whitaker. Kathy, would you come on up? Kathy is a fourth grade teacher at Humble Elementary. Now her administrators are busy tonight at a Veterans Day event, and so they are not with her tonight. But we want to tell you that those who nominate her said, Ms. Whitaker always takes time to build relationships with students. She sits with them at lunch. She wants our children to be comfortable. She's taken time to assist with STAR testing. She promotes relationships between students and mentors. Our mentor program has been a success here at Humble Elementary, and our students are benefiting from it. Okay, so our middle school is Jessica Mata. Jessica, are you here tonight? And those who nominate her said, Jessica always has a smile on her face and always has the can-do and will-do response for the entire KMS staff. She does a great job, and her hard work is so very much appreciated by all. Okay, and our support staff category is Lenora Zaweski. Melissa's going to come on up and join her. Thank you. Lenora is the receptionist at ISD. And those who nominate her said, Lenora's always willing to go out of her way to make people feel welcome when they come into the ISD. She has a friendly smile and will greet and direct visitors and employees to where they need to be. If something needs to be done, she will happily step up to the plate. Lenore is an asset to the ISD building. The adjective courteous comes from the old French word courteous, which means having courtly bearing or manners. So courteous behavior is a reminder of the value of good manners. This describes Lenore completely. This time to our other commendation, and I would invite, oh sure, yeah.
Ms. Conrad, if you would please, this as well.
And so Corinne Price with Insperity, would you come up here while I say a few words about Insperity? Insperity has recently been awarded the Employees for Education Excellence Silver Level Award from the State Board of Education. In 2013-2014 school year, Insperity's employees have logged over 8,600 volunteer hours with educational organizations. These hours were spent engaging with School Parent-Teacher Association events, school-wide programs, and community fundraisers. Insperity's commitment to educational excellence extends beyond volunteering in the classroom. The organization also volunteers with district community and service learning projects. For instance, Insperity employees help with several local prom dress drives for students and help prepare and supervise at school project graduations. Time and time again, Insperity continuously promotes community volunteer opportunities for their employees, and this company has proved to be passionate about working with students and teachers in our community. So tonight, Humble ISD is formally committing Insperity for their partnership with our schools. And this is the plaque that they received from the State Board of Education.
That's right, lately, last this week.
Mr. President, I do want everyone to know why I asked Ms. Conrad to join us. In addition to her being the best-looking trustee at the table, I wanted her to join us because she, like Mrs. Scarfo, are also employees of Insperity. So congratulations to the two of you as well.
Thank you very much.
And that concludes our commendations for this evening.
Well, thank you, Dr. Sconzo. And with that, we are going to move to questions and comments by patrons or employees of the district regarding agenda or non-agenda items. And the one that we have, and I asked Ms. Sampley here, is she and Dr. Moore, who is with her. As some of you may know, that recently a great asset of the district in years past has been retired. Dr. Jane Nelson passed away, and we asked Ms. Sampley had asked us, you know, was there something we could do in the short term, and so we said, well, how about if you guys come and pay tribute to a well-deserving woman.
Thank you for letting us come tonight. I want to speak to you just a few minutes briefly about people that a lot of us know, and some of the newer staff don't know Dr. Jane Nelson very well. Jane was a very special person, and I know about board meetings and board agendas, so I'll try to keep this brief. First, Jane was first and foremost always focused on the students and their learning experience. Second, she was very good, efficient administrator who always observed who I observed opening new campuses in a very efficient way that made all parties, parents, students, staff, work well harmoniously together. She was our go-to person for different things that were going on once she moved up to administration. She was the go-to person. Third, I observed her as a parent. My children were at Oaks when it opened, and I saw her share her concern and love for all the students, and this was very special. Fourth, and on a more special personal note, I watched as Jane and Glenna Bagley, who was the librarian at Oaks, expertly mentor a young library volunteer, inspiring her to go to graduate school and get her Master's of Library Science, and that led to a successful career as an elementary librarian. That happened to be my wife, Cheryl. So that's where she became a librarian. In summary, Jane was an excellent educational leader who loved her work, loved her staff, and above all, loved all children. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moore.
I'm going to apologize. I'm a little more verbose. I'm sorry. Mr. Scarfo, Dr. Sconzo, and distinguished board members, tonight is my great honor to visit with you for just a few moments about my mentor and my friend, Dr. Jane Nelson, who died on Saturday, November 1st, at her home near Cleveland, Texas. She is survived by her son, stepchildren, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, but she is also survived by countless educators, school people who have walked and continue to walk the hallways, corridors, and the playgrounds of Humble ISD. Jane earned her BA and MA in History and Political Science from the University of Houston, She had her MS in Psychology and Counseling from Adams State in Colorado and her educational doctorate in Curriculum and Instruction from Western Colorado University. Former school board member Lynn Fields says, Jane truly was a one-of-a-kind and a champion for our children. She touched the lives of so many, and she changed the lives of many children. I was grateful when Mr. Scarfo asked me to say a few words about Jane tonight, and I notified the troops that I needed their help and their input. My email box became bombarded with loving and passionate comments, which usually started with something like, she was my mentor, she was my friend. If there was a popularity contest, Jane would probably not win. She did not believe that one could do their job well and still have everyone like them at the same time. She was pragmatic. She told me, in this business, you're going to have to make some tough choices, and sometimes the right choice is not a popular one. If you believe what you're doing is right, do it, and I will support you. She hired people that she believed in, and then she supported us by always having our back. I was under the impression that Jane was the first woman to be a principal of any Humble ISD school. That is not true. And thanks to people like Al Moore, Dr. Robert Moe, Carolyn Clapp, Brenda Story, Ruth Hutto, and with the help of Jamie Mount, I've been able to piece names and dates together. The very first woman to open an Humble ISD school was Frances Hyde, who opened Humble High School in 1918. Clearly, Humble ISD was the most progressive place to permit a woman to command a school during World War I. Moving to more modern times, Humble continued to be forward-thinking when it named Dorothy Harriman to succeed Mr. J.W. Towns in the early 1970s to become the second principal of Foster Elementary School in Kingwood. It was in 1975 when Jane, then known as Jane Schneider, was appointed by Superintendent George Turner to become the charter principal of Woodland Hills Elementary School in Kingwood, followed a semester later by Carolyn Clapp, who opened Bear Branch Elementary, and after that, Ruth Binkley, who opened Elm Grove. Mrs. Clapp says, Jane, Dorothy, Ruth, and I went to countless meetings together trying to become more competent administrators. We always had a good time. Jane made friends easily, and we met people from all over the place. On December the 17th of 1979, Jane opened her second elementary school for Humble ISD, Atascocita's first school, the Oaks Elementary. It was there that I met Jane. I sent my daughter to kindergarten in August of 1980 and became completely hypnotized by her charisma and devoted much of my time as a volunteer at the Oaks PTA. Under Jane's skillful guidance, the Oaks became a little Camelot. In short, there's simply not a more congenial spot for happily ever aftering than the Oaks of Atascocita. Jane collected a group of skilled, eager, intelligent educators. Her assistant principal at the Oaks, Judy Mulroy, says, my first year working with Jane was quite an experience. We had a bomb threat, and central office had Jane and I search the building. I was petrified, but not strong Jane. I also remember the time my first irrational parent was furious at me and coming up to the school immediately. I ran to Jane's office looking for help or finding a hiding place. Jane smoothed everything over as only she could do. Judy says, I was truly blessed to have a wonderful mentor. I have never worked in another school with so much cohesiveness. Former Oaks teacher Cindy Gauze says, Jane was classy, sassy, with an acute awareness of others' needs. She was open and she loved little kids. Nancy Caperton, another one of Jane's school family, said, Jane was gold and there was nothing plain about this Jane. Mm-hmm. Working with Jane, I knew the job was always to get it done to the best of our ability. She left no stone unturned and was thorough with all of her work as if it was the most important thing yet to be done. With Jane, everything was clearly outstanding. She loved education and she taught us all that knowledge is power. Her librarian at the Oaks, Glenna Bagley, reminded me of Jane's habit of getting close and then saying, "There's something I need to whisper in your ear." Glenna goes on to say that working with Jane, I knew that she trusted those that she had hired to do the job that they were hired to do. She loved her family, her students, her staff, and Texas, and not necessarily in that order. During her decade at the Oaks, her Oaks family surrounded her in times of personal sadness and personal joy. It was while she was at the Oaks that she lost her youngest son, Kenneth, in a tragic automobile accident. She was also at the Oaks when she earned her doctorate in education, and perhaps most importantly for Jane, when our Dr. J became Mrs. Edward Nelson. Recently retired Lakeshore and Pine Forest Elementary Principal Nancy Morrison says, "Working with Jane, I knew I'd better be on my toes. I admired her as the ultimate educational professional. I knew when she spoke, everyone listened. Truly, she would turn heads. Superintendents listened. She made a difference for all of us." Before she left the Oaks, a mural was executed in the cafeteria by the Oaks PTA in her honor. And on the 10th anniversary of the Oaks opening, the cafeteria was officially named Nelson Hall. Connie Nispoli, her Oaks PE teacher, says, "Jane was an example of what a true educator should be. She did what she loved, and she loved what she did." In 1989, Jane answered the call of then Superintendent Dr. Michael Say and started her 6-year stint as campus leader at Northbelt Elementary School. Clapp, who by then was working in the central office, says they needed a strong instructional leader at the school. Jane graciously said yes and rolled up her sleeves. She retired from Humble ISD after over 20 years at the close of the 1994-95 school year. After that, Jane spent a great deal of her time in her power suits and her high heels, walking the halls of the Granite Dome in Austin, advocating to Texas legislators on behalf of education and public educators. Carolyn Mashburn recalls, her passion for politics. She could explain dense and complicated issues in a way that regular folk like me could understand. My life is so much richer for having known her. Jane did not just join organizations, she worked when she joined. She was willing to run for office, serve on committees, and attend functions. She was greatly admired by so many, not just women. Carolyn Clapp goes on to say she handled her personal grief and her unhappiness with grace and faith. When Edward died in January of this year, I told Ruth Hutto to be sure to tell Jane about the Grief Share program at our church. She did, and Jane attended. The next time I saw Jane, she hugged me and she said, "Thank you so much." There was not a Grief Share program in the Cleveland area, so Jane was working with our associate minister, Mary Magnuson, to start one. Mary told me that she talked to Jane the day before she died. So even in the end, she was working hard to help others. Carla Hopkins, longtime HISD life skills teacher, says Jane's bright intellect, her kind heart, and joyful spirit will be dearly missed. Jane had an expression that she always used. When you asked her, "How are you?" her response was always, "Might as well say fine." I used the dictionary today, and I agree with all the synonyms that it lists for fine. Excellent, first class, exceptional, outstanding, superior, splendid, magnificent, exquisite, superb, and wonderful. Our Jane was very fine indeed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Sanford. Thank you, Dr. Moore. Appreciate that very much. Ms. Young, that was no other listings. So with that, I will move to my colleagues with comments by individual board members. Mr. Aguilar, I'm going to start here.
No comments.
Mr. Rusher?
Stanley, Dr. Moore, for that wonderful history lesson for me, not being here and having had some of that knowledge. So that was very well done. Thank you for that. And to any of my colleagues who might be wondering whether or not you think you might be the favorite board member on the table, this was a thank you card that I got that I don't know what the size is on your table, but I think I got the biggest, largest thank you card. Would all y'all hang yours up? So, in case anyone might be wondering how you can tell who the favorite board member is.
Yeah, but I got 7 of them.
And this is a Milky Way. That used to be a Twix right there. I know where it went.
You only got one? All right. Bigger than all yours put together. Okay. But just a few minutes, Mr. President, if I could. I had a wonderful experience here recently by attending my scheduled session as watchdog at Deerwood Elementary. And so I wanted to share that experience with all of you tonight and recognize some of my new friends that I met through that process. And just a brief take of what Watchdogs is. It's a program that gets dads more involved with the school, creating an avenue for dads to volunteer at the school, be involved, be represented as a positive role model by attending school and doing things within the school during the school day. And so I joined the club, so to speak, as a dad, a Deerwood dad, and so wanted to recognize some of the folks. I started my day in Miss Robinson's class, who's here today in the back of the room. It's a very structured day, by the way. There's an agenda. You can't waver from it. Miss Godnich or Miss Threadgill will hunt you down and make sure you stay on track. But just a tremendous opportunity. I got to spend some time with Miss Robinson and her pre-K steps class, and we all talk about the importance of pre-K and the development of our kids and getting them on the right track, and the work that she did and does in that class that I got to witness firsthand was quite remarkable. Certainly getting our kids off to the right start. So thank you, Ms. Robinson, for your work. Then I went to Mrs. McCabe's class, who is a kindergarten teacher. And believe it or not, they are reading in kindergarten. And so I was put to the task of reading in front of the class after observing a reading lesson. And I thought it might be easy to read in front of kindergartners. It's not that easy when you're sitting in front of all those kids, because you don't want to let them down, and you got to make sure that you deliver on the story that you're talking about. But nonetheless, I appreciate that experience very much, Ms. McCabe. Mrs. Nerad then had the, or thankfully invited me to attend her class, which was a 5th grade math class. And it was because a student teacher had developed a lesson. That student teacher has a name, but I will refer to her as Agent Llewellyn, who's here, right there. I have personally sent an email, by the way, to Dr. Sconzo and Rick about you and somebody else in this room, just over just a few minutes. But the lesson that you organized for the class, for you guys that weren't there, it was a James Bond 007 secret mission related to long division. And so it certainly really gave an energy to doing math. You could tell the use of technology, the way she incorporated the iPads that were available was just very refreshing. And so thank you for that. We need to be doing everything we can to find a home for her in this district. So just want to make that very clear. Mrs. Shurtleff, I haven't seen, is she here? I will tell you just briefly though, computer class for a 1st grader is very interesting. And the patience that she displayed was remarkable, as every single one of those kids' hands were going up trying to figure out how to point and click. But the lesson itself was really a testament to how far I think technology has come when you have a 1st grader literally sitting at a computer doing things that I don't think I did until I got into middle school. So that was just a remarkable experience as well, seeing the work that goes into the lesson planning around a computer lab session. And then finally, I ended up in Mrs. West's class with student teacher, Ms. Westover, who's here as well. And that's a 1st grade class in which I was able to observe another math lesson. And the way that Ms. West was able to keep 1st graders' attention on math related to addition and subtraction and equals and all of that. And what I took away most from that was her ability to really leverage the class together to come up with the right answer. And it wasn't about just one student. They all helped each other. It was very much a team approach. And so we have another student teacher in the audience, Ms. Westover, who I'm sure will be looking for a job. And so let's make sure we take care of her as well. But all this happens under good leadership. And so Ms. Threadgill's here. I know Ms. Godnich could not make it, but we've talked about some strong female administrators throughout this district and the history that we just got today. So I would certainly hold you in that regard. So thank you for everything you do. And thank you for the experience that I've had in some things. That's all, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. Would you guys just stand up for a moment just so we can give you a hand? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rushing. Mr. LeBeck.
Did not have any comments until Gail, you got up there and said those words, and they moved me. They really did. People, I tell people all the time, I don't really hang around educators unless I'm here in this district. Maybe my son's teachers are here in this boardroom or going to the campuses. And I tell them on the school board, and they're like, "You're crazy." And they talk about education, how hard it is and things. And I explained to them, I said, these people that do this are special. And the thing about it is, you have people like Dr. Nelson who, you can try to conceive the number of people she touched either directly or indirectly in her entire life. It's an amazing thing. And so very, very, very moving, very touching, and I think it's a great example for these educators that we have here in this room tonight. So thank you for doing that. Mr. Scarf, I thank you for asking them to do that because it's a good thing. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LeBeck. Mr. Sid.
Yes, I'll be brief, and thank y'all for sharing. That was fantastic. When you lose someone that's in the family and education is a family, even if you're retired. I didn't coach and teach for a long time, but I'm still included in all the functions and so forth in that community, and it is a family. So y'all proved that again tonight, so thank y'all for being here. A couple other notes real quick. I had the privilege of attending 4 different veterans programs over the last couple days. If you have never had the opportunity to watch grown men and women tear up in an elementary school when a group of 5th graders stand up and sing Lee Greenwood's song, it sends chills up your spine to watch. When they sang, it was at Pine Forest Elementary, when they got to the part, and I gladly stand up next to you, and all those service men and women stood up, and tears rolling down their face. It makes you feel proud to be part of the district. And I point them out. It was one of the programs I went to. Humble High School, Kingwood High School today had their rendition of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Just very moving, very powerful. These things were going on all over our district the last few days. And I just feel privileged to be a part of it and privileged to be asked to come and experience that at all levels. And so, Dr. Sconzo and your staff, I want to thank y'all for giving me that opportunity to be part of it as a board member and part of it as our community.
Thank you, Mr. Sidden. Mr. Cunningham. No comments. Ms. Conrad.
I do. Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to take a minute to thank our Public Information Office, and I know all the effort that you went through to upgrade our website template recently, and all that goes with that. Definitely that's very visible in our community, and often the first impression of our district that people outside of our community get. So we appreciate you working hard and making that, putting that in place. I know I've had a lot of good input from students as well as to the responsive design of it for their mobile devices and things like that. So hopefully, if you've not experienced that personally, you'll visit your webpage for your student and stay connected with some of the activities that are going on
also have put together a social media directory, so if you're on social media and you haven't gotten connected to your child's school or organizations within your school, they have a social media directory that they are keeping up to date as submissions from organizations are given to them. Some of your trustees are on there as well, so if you're not connected already, go ahead and get connected, and just thank you guys for all your work and getting that updated.
Thank you. Just quickly, we were at Timber Elementary yesterday. That was another good program. And if you haven't been, as Mr. Sitton said, if you haven't been before to Humble High School for theirs, you ought to put it on your calendar for next year. It's easy to remember because it's on November 11th on Veterans Day. But they just did a great job. I haven't seen anything, but I'm sure that's good too. Just real quick, I know as we move through the ICLE program and rigor, well, if you want to see a classroom that is in quadrant D already, you want a good example of it, go over to Mr. Brown's aeroscience engineering class at Kingwood Park High School. I had a chance to be there, this was last week. He had some of his friends there that were 3 engineers from NASA, real rocket scientists, and they were there to critique the students, the 6 teams, on what they were doing for preparing for their rocket shoot coming up, the final one. They do different stages throughout the year. But they were critiquing them on their plans and everything, really tough stuff, tough questions. This wasn't like, oh, it's nice to see you kind of stuff. They were putting through the paces. And I tell you, our kids were just great. Just their poise, their knowledge, how they interacted with these adults, with these people who really do the work. It was great to see. So that really was where it was just great. So I just want to thank Mr. Brown and these students, and also the 3 engineers who were here from NASA. It was great that they gave their time.
Which high school was that?
Kingwood Park High School, and they also have a program at Kingwood Park High School.
Kingwood
Also
Park.
have that.
I just saw administration.
Ms. Drager's there, yeah, she knows that, yeah. But that was Kingwood Park High School.
Kingwood Park.
Kingwood Park.
Kingwood Park.
Yes. That's right. And that's all I have to say. And next, comments from the administration.
Thank you, Mr. President.
2 months in a row.
You're doing good. You're doing really good. So no report tonight, but I do want to piggyback on Mr. Rushing's report, because this morning we taped our district television show and did a segment with 2 of Deerwood's watchdogs, 2 of the dads, and want everyone to know that the watchdog program is a national program. DOG is an acronym for Dads of Great Students. And I'm just really, really proud and excited that Deerwood has taken that on, and I'm hopeful that other campuses will catch on, because I think it's just an outstanding way to get dads meaningfully involved in ways that unfortunately traditionally we've not been involved. And Deerwood heads up, got a couple of years, but I'm expecting the program to broaden to watch granddogs. That day's gonna come. Thank you. Oh, and to our student teachers, he's telling the truth. I did get the email today, and you have gotten yourself a very influential reference. That's it.
That's it. Thank you. Well, with that, we will move into our board action agenda. So hold on to your seats. This is the fun part. That's why you paid in there walking out.
Thank y'all for coming.
No refunds. Okay. Ms. Conrad, do we have any motions coming out of our closed session?
Yes, Mr. President, with respect to the FNG Level 3 parent complaint appeal, I move that the Board of Trustees rescind the trespass warning and review the board's facilities use policy.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? 6-1.
As to the personnel, I
I move that the board approve the administration's personnel recommendations as presented.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? 7-0.
As to the proposed termination of the probationary employment contract, I move that the Board of Trustees probationary employment contract of Eduardo Vargas for good cause in accordance with Texas Education Code Section 21.211A1 and Board Policy DFPA legal.
Second. Any discussion? We have none. All those in favor? 7-0.
And as to student placements, I move that the board approve the student placements in alternative education programs as presented by the superintendent.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? 7-0.
Finally, as to the minutes, I move that the board approve the minutes for the regular board meeting held on October 14th, 2014.
Second.
Okay, any discussion or changes to the minutes? All those in favor? 7-0. Okay, with that, now we will move to our updates on board associations and committees. First, advertising marketing. Mr. Rushing.
No comment this month, thank you.
Okay. Audit committee, Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you, Mr. President. The audit committee met this evening in the middle of the CAFR, and one of our other short reports, and these reports will be available for the rest of the board if they'd like to see it.
Next, Mr. Lopez, board superintendent evaluation.
No comments.
Okay.
No reports.
Building and planning, Mr. Anglari.
Yes, we had a great meeting last week, most of which we will discuss at the closed special workshop on December 15th. So I think I'll wait until we discuss it then. So Monday, December 15th, 6 o'clock. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Next, Education Foundation. Back to you, Mr. Lopez.
The golf tournament, because of the weather, was pushed back to December 11th. So everyone, the weather should, knock on wood, be nice and be a little bit cooler, but not quite as cool as tonight. And so everybody come out and play golf on the 11th. Let's raise some money.
Thank you, sir. Finance committee, no report for tonight. Next, the legislative committee, Mr. Rushing.
Yes, sir. Just a friendly reminder about our big day this week, Thursday, November 13th, 7 o'clock, the Atascocita High School auditorium for our first district-wide legislative committee meeting. Hope to see all of you there. Certainly spread the word to all your friends and family and neighbors so that we can have a good turnout and help educate our community on all the important things surrounding our district as we head into the 15th legislative session. So look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you, sir. Next, Mr. Sid, program.
Yes, we had our first set of interviews in regards to the 3-year plans with program directors. I guess it was 2 weeks ago now. We met with the folks from GT and the folks from Abbott. We hope to have a executive summary ready real soon for the rest of the board. You will probably have some questions that we can address at a later date, but want to give you all that heads up. We plan on meeting once a month until we get through all the programs that have started the process. Our meeting in November will be to discuss Western College and the IB program.
Thank you, sir. And next, the Technology and Data Governance Committee, Ms. Conrad.
Yes, sir. The committee met our regular monthly meeting last week, and again, we went over the financial models, had an update on some of the pilot programs that are going on in the district, and we also began a little discussion of student data, and Mr. Allen shared with us some of the data that they're collecting about the different interfaces, all the different systems that house student data, who the owners of them are, what types of data. So they're collecting a lot of information right now to see
Conrad. Having gone through our committee updates, next we will move into the consent agenda. Okay, Ms. Conrad, if you could follow along with me and keep track of this. Okay, under governance considerations, district goals, performance measures, and superintendent evaluation instrument. Consent. Board policy, DH local, employee standards of conduct. Consent. Okay. Moving down to learning division reports, considerations. Under purchases, technology services purchases, ISD group. Consent. Moving to financial division reports, considerations. First item, A, tax refunds. Consent. Waiver of P&I. Consent. Budgetary amendments and resolution for commitments of fund balance. That's consent. The independent auditors report. Consent. The independent registered municipal advisory certificate. Consent. And under purchases, purchase of a warehouse load truck. Consent. Okay, next group, we move down to support services division. First item is Smart Snack Chicken Slider Sandwiches.
Tim.
Did you say both?
I know, I said Tim.
Okay, that's consent. Under purchases, walk-in freezer and walk-in refrigeration, electronic online monitoring. That's consent. And then, next item, under purchases, contracts for various goods and services related to operations of the maintenance and grounds departments. Consent. And under district-wide reports and considerations, this is a purchase item. It's for paper goods and janitorial supplies. That's consent. Okay. Ms. Conrad, would you give those back to us in the form of a motion?
President, I move that the board approve the following items by consent. Under governance, items A and B. Under learning division, item A. Under financial services division, items A through G. A through E and G. Under support services division, items A through C. And under district-wide, item A.
Okay. Second. Mr. Sitton, second. Okay. All those in favor? 7-0. Okay, well, that takes us through the action items, and now I will just go back to, we had a couple of reports, and Dr. Sconzo, under governance reports and considerations, we had a report on employment practices.
Yes, we're presenting, Mr. President, changes to board policy DCE local this evening as an information item. We discussed this last board meeting, and so we made some revisions to it, I hope responsive to our discussion last month. We'll be happy to entertain any questions this evening or prior to our next board meeting, which is when we'll bring this back for the board's consideration and action.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Dr. Sconzo at this point on that, or you might want him to also look at?
That's the standards of conduct, right?
No, this is the contracts, DCE.
ECU local attachment. Okay. No, I got that.
All right. And Ms. Young, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think we moved to learning divisions, reports and considerations. We have, not that it's presented here, everyone has the electronic version of it, the student support services report, but if having viewed that, Ms. Conrad had made a request a little while back that we do this. If there are any questions, comments from what you saw from that, that you might want to see in the future, it might be something we might want to consider seeing on an annual basis, maybe expanded version, maybe a couple of things, so just put it out there to you guys. Lee? Okay, great. Ms. Young, that was the last item, right? So, is there, any questions if moving to the financial services section on the reports that we receive each month, financial reports? Any questions for Dr. Sconzo or Ms. Lynn? Okay. I'm sorry, I was just remiss in saying, talking about finances, to just make note that we received, our district, a lot through the efforts of the Financial Services Group, another certificate of excellence in financial reporting for the fiscal year 2013. Just another great commendation for us as a district. So we appreciate everybody involved in making that happen within the Financial Services Group, as well as the rest of the district, because we know it really is a team effort in those kinds of things. So congratulations to you guys. And we forgot to make note, Mr. Kite gave us his 9-week report, and it's really great to see that the percentage of students who didn't make it for the first 9 weeks. You look at the students that are in the athletic programs, they're half at that, if that, the rate of district overall. So that's just, I think, a great indication of what the motivation that the kids have to be involved in these programs. Mr. Sitton?
Yeah, just a little clarification. What he's talking about is we get a report at the end of each grading period, looking at all the kids that are involved in extracurricular activities and their pass rate versus the average student population. And as we've spoken about several times from this pulpit, if you will, an involved child is a successful child, and the reports that we get, the failure rate of those kids that are involved in extracurricular activities is about half that of the general student population. So one thing that I'm tickled to death about, especially on our high school level, and I'm finding out it's more and more on our middle school levels as well, the number of clubs. The number of clubs are being offered to get more and more kids involved in some activity on campus, so they have a group to cling to and so forth. And that seems to be working, and our failure rates are going down dramatically. And so hats off to all those sponsors, coaches, and club organizers out there. So thank you for that. Thank you for bringing that up, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry, Ms. Parliamentarian. Ms. Parliamentarian, did you? I'm sorry. I meant to say that in the comments section, and I forgot. I was remiss in doing that. I had it right there in front of me. Forgive me. That's where I was trying to plug it back in. Good morning. Thank you. Yeah, right. Angela needs a. Okay, we're almost finished here. And the last item, future board business. Anything that you, my colleagues, would like to have put onto driven into our parking lot? Or?
Mr. President, I
Yes,
do have
sir.
something. If you would indulge me for just a minute.
Sure thing.
A couple of minutes. You know, we did television taping today.
Yes.
And then we talked about what makes us proud of our district. And really kind of talked about the caring of the district and community and giving each child a chance to basically make their dreams a reality. I have a heavy heart today. I have a heavy heart. But I want to say that I would like Mr. President and Dr. Sconzo to pull a report on the YMCA. Anytime a parent, grandparent, guardian, or whatever has to have a child say, what did I do wrong? And I'm always an advocate of saying, if you got a problem, you need to talk to people. Don't talk at people. A child should never be involved in grown folks' talk. And I'm gonna put it like that. Never. We're trying to develop the future, develop young minds, not destroy. And so I'd like to know exactly whatever's in the limits and the bounds of this district, from the attorney, what is on the contract that we have with the Y, what is the cost, how's the program ran, just what kind of contract's in place. I'm not going to say any more to that, but I want to see that. Mr. President, Dr. Sconzo.
Yes, sir.
And I won't go as far enough to say, but maybe even an apology from the Y. Because it's unacceptable that you put a first grader, it's just unacceptable. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. Dr. Sconzo, you will
I'll take it.
take note of that. Thank you very much. Anything else? Okay, with that, we are adjourned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to read all mine? Mine are actually handwritten.